Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasati Gaur Bhakta Vrindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasati Gaur Bhakta Vrindam.
Good evening, Haribo Namaste to all. Welcome to this weekly episode of Thursday Yoga Talk. I am Nefai de la Serna of Philippine Yoga Academy. I am a yoga holistic coach, and I've been helping people to transform their lives and bringing them to the best version of themselves. So this show is all about yoga under the sun and beyond. We give you all the bits and talks of yoga from philosophy and its practices to help you and assist you through your yoga journey. So tonight, I have a very special guest with me who will share to us some of the basic yoga practices that will support our New Year's resolution. Our guest for tonight has a unique upbringing in the place of a 22-acre farm situated in suburban city, and it's instilled with amazing sense of wanderlust. Her love for people, education, and movement is what fuel her career to focus and passion. As an accomplished customer service professional, she has been proud to support the development of the community through education, sharing experiences, and interactive conversation. She believed that social change begins in the local level, that in order to affect the large community, we must first develop ourselves to an individual who is committed to understanding others so that we can be of greater service to all. A certified yoga teacher and continuing her advanced yoga teacher training through the World Peace Yoga in Cincinnati, the owner of Golden Fox Studio, I give you my guest for tonight, no other than Miss Jessica Kirschner. Hello.
Hi. I'll say good
How are
morning
you?
from Cincinnati. I know it's the evening
Yes.
there, but it is
Yeah.
bright and early 7 a.m. here. So
Wow.
thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and chat with all of you online.
Yeah, exactly. Well, as much as you are excited, our viewers are also excited and they want to know more about you. So tell us what you do lately.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, and I am based here in Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States, and this is actually where I grew up. So I actually just moved back about 2 years ago, but was living on the East Coast for 8, and came back to spend some time with family, and decided to go back to school. So I'm currently also a student at the University of Cincinnati as well, studying psychology, and really,
Wow.
yeah, and really like my hope, my interests really lie at the root of education and reform, and integrating some of these holistic practices in schools to help really implement preventative methods for mental health and wellness. So just sharing these amazing tools, yoga and meditation and asana, those tools have been really helpful for me in terms of my own mental health, and I just think it's so powerful. They're just such powerful tools, and I would love to be able to incorporate some of them into schools, and just I think they're just like really good daily life skills to have in regards to like managing stress and anxiety. So yeah, and then and I know you mentioned I'm also continuing my yoga teacher training as well, which is really exciting. So that, as well as through World Peace Yoga locally here in Cincinnati, which is really great. So yeah, lots of fun stuff going on. Just trying to make the most of the time, right?
Yeah. Well, since that we have the pandemic and we have all the time right now to study more. Like you love education so much. So yeah, we could all have the time now to enhance ourselves and to develop ourselves.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, whether they're in formal academia or like formal schooling or not, I think I know that many people have kind of like taken advantage of this time to better themselves, and just give themselves more education or training in something that is something that really interests them. So yeah.
So it has been so nice to know that you have been so busy while at home, So to start with our conversation, can we now go to our conversation? Because I know you have prepared something to share for us. Yeah.
Well, I'm really excited when you reached out, and we were kind of talking about this New Year's yogic lifestyle and kind of what that means. And the first thing, that really popped to my mind was obviously, New Year's resolutions. And I don't know if this is like, if it's as promoted in the Philippines as it is here, but there is like so much buzz around like, what are your New Year's resolutions and how to accomplish them and stick to them and all this stuff. So a lot of pressure.
It's like actually a rebirth for us to start again what we have missed the last year. So it's like today we promise now that we will do it this time. It's something like that.
Yes.
So what can you say about that kind of mentality that people were always looking forward for something to renew themselves, as if nothing had happened in their past years?
Well, Yeah, well, I think what's interesting, so, traditionally a New Year's resolution is kind of when an individual, they're like, I want to change something, or they set a goal, or maybe they want to change an undesired trait, whatever it is, or save money to buy a house or go on a trip, right? So you're already kind of like setting up this expectation, this anticipation. And what was actually interesting, and especially since we're talking about this today, on Monday when I was doing my meditation, so I used the app called Calm, and they have like the 10-minute morning meditations, which I love. I'm not, I'm prefer more of guided meditations, and anyway, but the teacher, Tamara Levis, she actually talked about intentions on Monday. And I was like, oh, this is so interesting, because this is exactly what we're going to talk about today. And she put it really beautifully that so when you set an intention versus a resolution, an intention has more of a compassionate energy, and that it's not tied to this outcome, but more bringing this like mindfulness and awareness to make an effort to change, versus this resolution has all of this, not stress, but it just has, it has a lot of, I don't know the word, I'm totally blanking on the word I'm looking for, but basically when we don't meet our resolution, it feels kind of like a failure, or, if your goal
something that you have to achieve, something that you
like
want
if you're supposed to go to the gym 5 days a week and you only go 3, you're like, oh, I failed, and maybe that even causes you to just say, screw it, I already, so basically looking at your intention, if you're setting an intention rather than a resolution, you're able to kind of like look at that failure with a little less criticism. And I just thought that was really interesting to think about when we are talking about resolutions, and maybe it's okay to set resolutions, but also maybe think about your intention behind your resolution. So if you do have these slip ups, then you're not viewing them as failures. So,
you are less hard on yourself too.
Yeah.
So I kind of has also something like that when people think of New Year's resolution, something that they want to achieve for this year, and sometimes they miss out all their accomplishment in the previous years, that they have come so much, that they have achieved so much in their lives, and they missed out to appreciate what they have started.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, and with that, I thought today we could kind of talk more about and share with those who are listening also some things that might be supportive, and whether it's building and figuring out what you want your resolutions to be, or because they're also potentially could change throughout the next year.
Exactly.
So what can help you support them, and then also maybe these things can also help you figure out what they are, and then help you accomplish them, right? So that's kind of what I was really excited, what I'm really excited to talk about today, because there is so much excitement in the new year about making them. So
okay.
Yeah.
So you can start actually by sharing us, because for me, as listening to you right now while saying it, I'm also thrilled to know it. So let's get started on jumping.
So the practices that I wanted to talk about today, they come obviously from yoga in this like practice, but I thought it was kind of important to talk about a little bit of provide a little bit of background, maybe for the people who aren't necessarily like yogis or practice. Maybe there's people who have never even actually practiced asana yoga. So, but just to kind of give those who don't know, the word yoga, so the word yoga comes from this word yoke, and it means to join and unite. And there are various practices. So I know there's a lot, especially here in the States, there's a lot of, oftentimes people think of just the postures and the movement of the yoga,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
really there's various practices that assist us in understanding kind of but the goal of yoga also is to really like unite us with this like true authentic self, right? And but the yoga practice can encompass many things, like being mindful every day of your interactions with others, making healthy food choices, managing your stress and tension, increasing your awareness is a huge one, right? So really, a yogic lifestyle is this really holistic approach to living.
Yeah.
And
Actually, yoga has all the hacks of life. I mean, it is actually all the tools that you need to bring you back to your natural state.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's something that's not stagnant. It's developed over time. And as we talked about the other day, it's not just like, you don't just like hit this level and then you're a master and you're all knowing and, and that's just, it ends. It really evolves over time. And that path looks so different for everyone.
Exactly.
But what I love about the practice of yoga and what I've been learning myself is that these teachings and what we can learn is not, you don't even have to you don't have to get on your mat every day. You can take parts of the yogic practice, meditation, or taking some time for stillness, and there's just so much value in really unearthing what's within you. And I think, that's really why I say that there's so much, you really have to kind of like go inward first to be able to really make that change in the larger community. That's why I say that, because I really believe that when you spend time to get to know yourself and unearth these, when you go out into the world, you can interact with people so much better than if you had never kind of had this stillness within yourself. Does that make sense?
Yes, it is. Actually, that's what you're saying is the practice of yoga off the mat is what is important is when you resonate yourself outside your mat and living in a life in a practical level with the philosophies of yoga, right?
Yeah, and also kind of almost even like questioning every choice that we're making, or every in regards to the action that's attached to that, right? So every thought and has a consequence, right? Whether it's good or bad, and we talked about this as well. Is that it's not always good or bad or right or wrong, but there's just this other thing that's attached. And so yoga is being mindful of that, and understanding that you have a choice also to make your actions kind or gentle or cruel and vicious, right? Like you have that choice.
Yes, exactly.
Being aware. But yeah. So well, and so to kind of continue, I guess the practices that I want to talk about, they come from, so within yoga, right? We have the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. So this is kind of, you can kind of look at these sutras as a guide or kind of like a manual instruction on how to live a life in order to move along this spiritual path. So it's just kind of like guidelines to living a more meaningful and purposeful life. Ideas of
it's like a moral code, or a moral code that you can adhere to your life,
right?
To guide you for the best version of yourself.
Right. Yeah. And the practices today that I thought are really helpful for a New Year's resolution, they come from these Yoga Sutras. So so I wanted to talk about ahimsa and swadhyaya. and tapas, not the Spanish
Wow.
food.
Yeah,
So
those are
very,
quite.
very broadly. And for those who might be listening too, that might seem a little intimidating with, these ideas, but they're, like I said, even if you're not like this yogi or practice yoga, they're actually like very interesting to think about. So to kind of more or less jump into them, these concepts, they come from these two different paths within a yoga. So we have the yamas and the niyamas. So the yamas, you can think about, they're basically kind of like these moral codes of how we interact with others, and just things to keep in mind, guidelines to help live a lifestyle that is most supportive to yourself, but also when you're going out in the world and interacting. And then the niyamas are this kind of moral code with yourself of how to interact with yourself, and just kind of these practices associated with interacting with yourself. But again, they're both of the yamas and the niyamas. They're can be applied both to yourself and others, right?
Yes. Well, as you can see, as I understand what you're saying, you can say that yamas is your constitutional duty, while the niyamas is your personal contribution to the world, or developing yourself in a personal level so that you can contribute to the world.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And this, so one of the first yamas is called ahimsa. So in thinking about bringing this into your New Year's, right? So ahimsa is non-violence or non-harming, and we're talking about kind of non-violence in all aspects. So whether that means not physically harming others, ourselves, or even nature. And it's also, you can think about it in terms of not thinking negative thoughts about yourself, negative thoughts about others. And that when you just making sure kind of that as you're moving through your life, you're doing it so in harmony and not out of harm. So I think something, so like the first thing I think in terms of a New Year's, and also just how the relationship with ourselves is your thoughts, right? So our thoughts play a huge role in our well-being. You can be hitting your goals, your New Year's resolution of going to the gym, eating well, you're saving your money for your trip, but you can have really harmful thoughts, and that can be that's a loose thread that can really unravel all this other really great stuff. So practicing ahimsa is being mindful of your thoughts when we're talking negatively to ourselves, to others. So to flip that, thinking from a non-violent standpoint, loving thoughts. And we know even from a scientific perspective that when you have these loving thoughts, it releases dopamine, which is this like feel good hormone.
Yes, the dopamine. Yes.
Yeah, and it's really powerful. So I just think thinking about that is really important, in a relation to, again, even other types of New Year's resolutions, right? Where again, many people, their goals are a physical or mental perspective, and oftentimes people can feel really frustrated, whether they're in their yoga practice or at the gym, and they are having negative thoughts about their bodies, like I'm not good enough, I'm not in shape enough, I'm not flexible enough. So accepting your body as you are right then and there. And also as you're working to make your resolutions, taking the time to say, what's my intention behind my resolution? And am I respecting my boundaries and listening to my body when I'm setting these New Year's resolutions? Or am I harming myself? Am I being violent in my thoughts?
Exactly.
So, yeah. And I just think I think practicing ahimsa is really interesting in regards to that. And again, another way to also think about it, I'm kind of giving examples because I know for me, sometimes it's like, well, how does this like relate to my life?
Yeah. If because of the personal level, yeah.
For those of you who are like, I'm not quite sure how this applies. But yeah, I just so also thinking about being so eating food is another really big resolution, right? Eating well, and I will say that's eating well, and I would say that's actually one of mine. I feel like my well, that's been my focus for a few years, is trying to. When I was living on the East Coast, I did not have a very good diet. I didn't have like any money, so I would just go to the store, buy whatever food was on sale. I'd end up eating like the same meal, 3 times a day. So my nutrition and eating well was not great. So I'm trying to change that over these years. But with that, sometimes it's hard to even, so thinking about practicing nonviolence, ahimsa, when it comes to our diets, in yoga, a lot of times this practice of eating vegan or plant-based comes up, right? And maybe that's not, you don't have to be vegan or plant-based to practice yoga. I mean, ahimsa traditionally kind of does mean you're not harming others and all beings, which includes animals. But everyone's journey is a little bit different. I think what you can think about is making choices within your diet that are supporting environmentally friendly companies, right? Or maybe buying fair trade, not buying, maybe eating vegan or vegetarian a few times a week. But just there's other ways that you can be nonviolent and practice ahimsa when you're thinking about food and in the products that you're buying, right? Like looking on the back, is the lotion or the makeup you're using, is it tested on animals? Maybe you don't use it. So maybe that's something, maybe that is an intention that you set for yourself in this year, to be able to be more mindful and aware of cutting some of these things out.
Yeah. Actually, we have talked a lot the last visitor that I had, because practicing nonviolence, which emanates from yourself and to other living entity, if unknowingly you are harming them in such even what kind of level that you are partaking to those sufferings, so it has an impact to your lives as well. So in yoga practices, I think this is part of that's what's set in the yoga practices from the traditional point of view, because it really helps people to elevate themselves easily when they follow this kind of mentality, wherein non-violence in every aspect, and especially when it comes to choosing what we put on inside our body.
Yeah. And for me, it wasn't, I actually think it kind of started with my sisters, and from a perspective of, so one of my sisters, she is vegetarian, and she's vegetarian actually from more of an environmental standpoint. She's an environmentalist. And, so she talks, so her passion, or like she talks a lot about, not eating meat or reducing her intake of meat, from an environmental standpoint, because the production of all these different, animal
carbon footprint,
but I have some of my other sisters. I'm the youngest. There's 6 of us girls. So I have 5 older sisters, lots of girls. But some of my other sisters started kind of changing their products that they were putting in their bodies. And that, I think, when I think about it, was actually my first introduction to practicing this like ahimsa within just even like the products that I use, like being more mindful. Are my products being tested on animals? Are they actually being, they're just like not great? Are they being like violent to my body, with these like chemicals and stuff? And then when I did my yoga teacher training, one of the reasons why I chose the World Peace Yoga, because their philosophy, they incorporate this food aspect, and they do talk about it, and they really encourage veganism. They are very friendly about their approach and understand it's everyone's journey. And I am not vegan, but it has started to kind of change my perspective. And we actually read this book called The World Peace Diet, and it's just really interesting to like dig more. I won't get too down the rabbit hole, but it's just very interesting to think about changing these thought patterns and kind of what we're so used to doing, these habits of taking these certain actions every day in our lives. And it's like, well, I've been doing it for so long, right? Like it's the norm, but it's actually okay to question the norm, right?
Yeah. Curiosity will also lead you to the correct answer if you're really serious to know about it. So, yeah. So it's nice that you have mentioned about the non-violence thing, which is ahimsa, that we can practice that to our in a personal level, and also how we can choose the type of things that we can put inside our body. And what are the other examples that you are saying aside from what we put in? Because most of the time people neglect, especially in this practice, when they practice yoga. Yeah, as you say, some yoga practitioner practices yoga, but they don't consider being a plant-based eater. Yeah. So for those who really wanted to dig deeper to the practices, when they really understand the spiritual level of raising the consciousness, then that's the time that it goes down to that level of understanding, to take away all those things that will harm others and for themselves out of their life.
Yeah. Well, and I think now too, there's this importance too of the environment, right? I mean, there's always this importance of the environment, but just to give you another example before we kind of move on, other ways to practice ahimsa from a just day-to-day life. And I actually asked my sister this. I was like, Katie, do you have, she's the environmentalist and has really researched, and I'm like, what are some daily things that we can be non-violent to the environment, right? And thinking about changing, implementing some of these things in our life. And she's like, well, one of the biggest things is just, so when we think about not causing violence on our environment through the actions that we're taking, when you go to the grocery store or the market, don't buy single-use plastics or buy products that have less packaging or packaging that can be recycled. Or right now, everyone's Amazon blowing up, right? So if you're having Amazon delivered to your house every day, maybe you make one Amazon order a week, or maybe you do it twice a month, and you find other ways. Being mindful of the chemicals that you're using in your house, right? Cleaning. I know from I actually asked my sister from a disinfectant perspective, right? With COVID, she's like, be mindful of the chemicals and the household cleaners that you're using. Use vinegar as a cleaner. She's like, it's a really powerful cleaner. It's very acidic, although it's not what's the word that a disinfectant. It's still very, very powerful. Or think about, so just to give you kind of some other examples of practicing ahimsa in ways that you're thinking about not harming our environment.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so kind of with that, to kind of segue into our, the next practice I wanted to talk about is this practice of self-study. So swadhyaya, it's called, and I might not be pronouncing that. I'm not the greatest with pronunciations, especially in other languages. I learned that the very hard way when I tried to take my French class for school.
Yeah.
My tutors were very frustrated with me. So I don't mean any offense into not pronouncing things incorrectly, but this study of self-study, I think, kind of connects to practicing ahimsa, because when you're practicing this fourth niyama, it's you're really kind of going inwards, right? You're so you can either self-study, you can also, it implies this practice of studying scriptures, but this root word of what we're really talking about, it's implying contemplation, thinking about, recollecting, calling to mind, however you want to phrase it. But when we spend the time to get to know ourself, this small self, if you will, this is our personality, it's our ego, our identity. And when we spend time to kind of study who that is, we start becoming more aware of our habits, our behaviors, the ways we relate to the world, and we figure out, are there moments that we're not practicing ahimsa? Are there moments that I can change and be more compassionate? And so we really start to become really intimate with these behaviors and patterns and perceptions. And ultimately, we figure out what is not serving us ourselves, but also not what things are not serving others. You know, am I this miserable person that's going out in the world and causing misery on other people? So just bringing this self-study, I think, is just so important. It really brings this awareness to change. You know, and in relation to the new year, honestly, I think this is something that it is really a practice to develop and incorporate in your life all the time, not just at the new year or for a new year.
Well, most people don't realize that they need to introspect themselves. Most people have no idea that they can have the time to reestablish themselves and go over within to have that self-discovery. And that's actually one of the first thing that they can discover when they start to question about life. You know, when they actually, like what you said, from ahimsa, when you practice ahimsa at a certain level, you will be thinking, oh, my eyes now is opening, that my life is now directing to a certain point wherein I have more time to look into myself and how I affect to how this affect to others. And now, knowing, it's as if I'm uncovering something from my shell and then uncovering further from within about yourself and your inner brilliance, you know. So
and I think you know, it's such an important aspect. It's such an important practice to cultivate and to develop. Unfortunately, I wish it was something that we were taught and encouraged at a younger age, because you know, we put so much pressure. And I think that's why I'm also really passionate about kind of what led me into studying psychology and yoga and all of this stuff, is because all of that mind stuff is really important. You know, here, at least in the United States, there's so much emphasis on our bodies and taking care of our bodies, which is very important. But there's not this emphasis on taking care of our minds, and there should be. I mean, and if we are able to take care of our minds, that alone is going to help our physical. I mean, you know, there's research out there that shows that when what the physical effects of your mind can have on your body. And I just question why there's not this importance of it, why there's not this emphasis on doing that. So that's why I really believe that this practice of swadhyaya is really important. And there's ways. I remember talking with one of my girlfriends and kind of telling her where it's a bit overwhelming. It can feel overwhelming, right? To do this self-study or to do this inner work. Like, where do you start, right? So I think for those, who are listening and tuning in too, is, some of my recommendations that have helped me are, the biggest one I would say is journaling. I call it brain dumping, actually.
Yes.
So I just, I try to do this. If anyone's familiar with The Artist Way, it's basically this book that says to write these 2 pages every single morning, first thing when you wake up before you do anything.
Morning pages.
Have you read it?
Yeah, morning pages. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't always do 2 pages, but I think it's such a great practice, whether you do it in the morning or whether you do it at night or in the middle of your day, right? Just brain dump, get it all out. And at some point, I think it is important to go back and look at some things. I kind of have a separate notebook for that, where I just brain dump, don't even read it, don't care how things are spelled, if I'm even making sense. And then there's other things where I'll kind of journal about and reflect on, and go back and kind of let it marinate. So I think that's a really important practice to have, and a practice that you can use while you're thinking about your New Year's resolutions and your intentions, or even moving through the year, is to maybe reflect on, is this resolution still serving me? Is it right? Is it still resonating? Another practice, meditating is really great. Yeah. Or even doing body scans. So I know meditation can be really intimidating for a lot of people, and really overwhelming. And I'll be honest, I'm one of them. I, do practice yoga and try to meditate, but I'm not, it's not easy for me. But I think the important thing to think of, to keep in mind, is it's not this thing that people are good at per se. I kind of hate when people say that, or like that. I cringe when people say that, because I'm like, it's not really this thing that you're good at, it develops over time. The further we go into it, that stillness becomes more natural, right? So so whether you're sitting down and having stillness for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 or whatever, and some people can't, I prefer to practice guided meditations, but I do think that there is value. And I also mentioned body scans. So for those who might not know, do you practice body scans?
Well, I call it body mindfulness. Body mindfulness, being mindful with every part of your body. So I call it physical mindfulness or body mindfulness. Well, I just want to expound about meditation, that many people have misconception about it, that meditation is something that you have to do in a particular settings or in a particular form, So I believe that meditation doesn't comes like that, that it has no fast and hard rules, actually. That like, for example, if a mother is meditating how to take care of her child, or a businessman trying to meditate how to grow profits in his business, it's a kind form of meditation as well. But if that is the meaning of meditation in a way, then what is the difference of that concentration or focus if you do it in a yoga way, you know. So in a yoga, the certain level of meditation, there's a certain level. There is the meditation for the physical. There is also for the mind, wherein you can witness to separate yourself from your mind. And also there's a spiritual level of meditation wherein you connect to the divine, wherein like, for example, when you do the mantra meditation, it is the simplest but yet the most effective, that you can connect yourself to the divine, you know. So that's my take about meditation, that some people don't want to take it because they are thinking that, yeah, if you go to the highest level, you will be afraid of what's happening next. No, it's not. Okay, like what you said, at a certain level, whatever is the level of your understanding to what meditation is, then that's what you achieve according to how serious is your practice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I would also say, keeping in mind that for those maybe who meditation is also new to, or who might feel intimidated for whether, they're feeling what you had just explained, or even just this concept and idea of getting your mind completely blank, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
your mind thinks that's what it does.
yes,
So, and it's a lot of pressure to tell yourself or to think that you're just going to be able to like sit down and have this Zen moment and there's nothing going to be happening. Like that's not exactly how it works all the time. Or most of the time, maybe. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I have never experienced that. I definitely have better meditations, and sometimes I have really bad meditations, and I think that that's just something that you will experience. Sometimes it'll be really great and feel good, and other times it'll be, even when it's not as blissful, there's still, even with that agitation that you're experiencing, like what is that? That's that self-study, right? Like like what's coming up, right?
What had happened? What was that? It's always a new experience. That, what was that? Oh, where did I go? So
Yeah. And I think also meditation, I mean, as you even said, I mean, it can be movement. Practicing yoga, going to the gym, going for a run or walk, that can be moving meditation. And I think those are really great tools and practices to have in terms of your self-study as well. Because you're really getting intimate with yourself, whether it's on that yoga mat or in your run or at the gym or whatever. And things start to come up of how you're reacting to certain situations.
exactly.
And one of my yoga teachers, she used to always say, which I've totally borrowed from her for my classes sometimes, is that during, speaking in terms of yoga practice, like during our asana practice, we are intentionally putting our bodies in these stressful positions. So by like tuning into our breath and our mind, we're able to kind of learn to create a way of dealing with that stress in a healthy way, and understanding like what our limits are and how our body's feeling. And I think those are those moments where we're learning stuff on our mat or in our workout, which can then be carried over into our daily life,
Exactly.
So it's all really good stuff. And I guess like one last kind of recommendation kind of thing that I have also found is really helpful, and that is in terms of self-study, and that also is recommended when practicing Swadhyaya is studying scriptures, and whether that is like modern spiritual literature or whether that is this ancient, studying the Yoga Sutra or the Bhagavad Gita or all of this stuff, but or even taking a personal development class. I took a interpersonal relations class 2 summers ago.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. So we're not only obviously learning how to better interact with others and build better relationships with others, but the stuff that I learned about myself was so powerful. That is probably one of the biggest things I would recommend if you ever get the chance to take an interpersonal relations class. As even if you think you're a master at it, there will be things that you will walk away with. But I just think that's, practicing reading literature and reflecting on that and how it relates to you, I think can be a really powerful practice in terms of digging deeper into yourself and doing that kind of self inner work.
Yes. And those words that is written in the scriptures are very helpful in guiding us to realize further for ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I've been thinking with what you're saying a while ago that you have already mentioned three things that you recommend for people to do in Swadhyaya, and just continue, because I have something in mind that to contribute with that.
That first Swadhyaya?
Oh, yeah, for the Swadhyaya. No, I'm just integrating everything. So continue.
Please. Oh, I'd love to hear. Go ahead.
Well, it's just for people to easily remember. You have said that first you have to have journaling for your self-study, and it means to me that journaling is actually putting into writing all the things that's there in your mind, all your thoughts, and that is actually recording. Yeah. And the second to that is the meditation, wherein you empty your mind, or making your mind relax to recharge your mind again, so that information is ready to go in. And then the last one is reading the scripture. So after the meditation, once your mind is already relaxed and ready to accept new information, then you now feed it with words of wisdom from the scripture. So it's kind of actually a good sequence.
Yeah.
If you will think of it, it's like writing, recording, and then relaxing your mind and emptying for a certain level what kind of meditation that you have, and then feeding it again with a new information that is very helpful to you.
I didn't even actually think about that particular order. I love that, actually. I'll have to try that. I mean, I feel like that's really neat.
Unless you have more to share, because that's what I get from what you are sharing right now, and those things that you're saying about self-study is very, very helpful.
Yeah. I guess I've practiced kind of like the journaling in the morning, and then sometimes I do like I'll do my 10-minute meditation, but I'll have to practice that. But thank you for pointing that out. And maybe that will be a good time for me to read. I'm trying to incorporate even more reading, and I'm struggling with at what point am I reading certain things, certain literature, and maybe I'll have to try that tomorrow.
Well, I just want to emphasize that there are a lot of knowledge in this world that we can get, and nowadays in this virtual age, most people are selling information. Information is now a commodity. So if we will just focus feeding our mind with the information coming from this material world, and then those information at the time of death, it will just bubble up and gone away, then what is the value of that when we face our end? So that's a good way actually of thinking, that we have to embark ourselves feeding our mind with the scriptures, because those are living knowledge.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, and I guess with kind of segueing into the last practice, I would say, is this practice of tapas. And and
my favorite.
I'm sorry?
My favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. So tapas is this practice of it can be translated kind of into having discipline, or this this burn, this kind of like fear, like fiery passion or discipline, and this idea of discipline for me personally had kept coming up, especially these past few weeks, because I'm thinking about discipline in relation to motivation, and I kept kind of thinking, am I going to be motivated? Like, am I like, I don't always feel motivated to do things. And I'm sure a lot of people feel like that. Hopefully I'm not the only one. And kind of like struggling with, this whole idea. And I'm like, well, maybe I need to like flip the script here and think about, forget about being motivated. And maybe what I need is to be disciplined, to diving, I'm getting passionate, and diving into just having discipline. And I think that is something that can be really important and a really important practice to incorporate thinking about our New Year's resolutions. And as we move through this year, where there's going to be practicing tapas encourages us to become this person of kind of strength and this deep character to, show up every day, even when we're tired and don't feel like it, and to push through it, and keep marching on, right? It's cultivating this sense of self-discipline, passion, courage to work towards breaking down these kind of like impurities within ourselves, because that, I guess I would kind of think about maybe not having this lack of motivation could be this impurity, or like these thoughts of, oh, like I'm not good enough to complete this, or, right? Like we have to strip that away, right? That's what tapas is to have that discipline, to wash it away. Is that how you would describe it?
Well, for me, tapas is something that will keep you moving to your passion. So it's bringing you all that enthusiasm, so that you can further do the action of hitting your goal. So for me, as tapas in a simple word, I kind of describe it as austerity, that you are willing to undergo a certain kind of discipline or a certain kind of action in your life, wherein you want to achieve something out of it, not actually expecting anything at the end, but engaging in a certain type of austerity in itself is the reward. It's the reward in itself.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. And I think kind of that thinking again about like New Year's and moving through this journey or this next year, tapping into that kind of like inner wisdom, that inner knowing, and just to keep just to keep going and having this that discipline to show up. And even if it's, it doesn't necessarily mean pushing yourself in a physical manner. It could just be having the discipline to show up, to get on your mat for 10 minutes or to journal for 5 minutes in the morning, right? But it's to me, it's having the courage and discipline to continue onwards in your New Year's resolution and intentions, even in those moments where you feel like you failed, right? So kind of going back to what we were talking about in the beginning, this difference between our intentions and our New Year's resolution, to changing your perception. And when you have these slip ups this coming year, to just keep moving forward and have the courage and the discipline to move forward. So
Well, I like to add actually about tapas because in a personal level, I really find what you're saying, that forget about motivation and just flip it over. I really feel you when you say that, because most people are waiting to be motivated before they do a thing, you know. So in my realization, I find it that just do the action, and then when you do the action, you will love doing it as you do the action slowly and slowly. And then while you're doing it, you start loving it. And while you're loving it, okay, you are motivated. The motivation comes in, and then you continue pursuing it. So that kind of mental mindset, or that kind of mindset, is actually very powerful if you will just put everything into action, because action speaks louder than words, as they say. Yeah, we know it, but even if we know it, yeah, there are really days. Yeah, respect your body if you are tired. Respect your body if you have been so stressed the other day, and then today you want to just lay down, procrastinate everything. Just respect your body. What does it need? But it doesn't mean that for all the time you will be justifying yourself to procrastinate and not do the action. So for me, tapas is kind of austerity, propelling you to do something which you don't like because it's for your own good.
Yep.
So
all good stuff.
yeah.
And hopefully for those who are watching and kind of listening, these practices, like I said before, you don't have to be this yoga guru, or you just, these are practices that you can really dive into further and take at your own pace. They're things that I'm still discovering and unearthing and studying to learn more and more about how I can apply them in my own life. And I just think that they can be really powerful and supportive in helping you move through your journey. And I think that's really exciting.
Yes. And let it unfold as you involve yourself into that process. Yeah.
So I want to say to you, thank you so much for letting me join you in this conversation. It's been so fun, and I love our energy together. So.
Well, at this juncture, because you have mentioned everything about those practices, those essential yoga practices that we can practice in the Niyamas platform of Patanjali's 8 limbs of yoga. Yeah. So, what in a simple manner, how will you tell people to start? What will be the start for them to dive in? This is new to them. So what will be the very first thing that they should do to start this?
I would say if there are any of the things that we've talked about today, just one small little aspect, start there. Right? I mean, I would say not to put this pressure on. I'm someone who can overthink a lot. And if you're new to these practices, it probably does seem a little overwhelming, or can be. So just pick one of them, whether it's, I want to have more discipline with going, sticking to my resolution, whatever that is, or, I want to watch myself talk, whatever it is. Just start with one thing. It doesn't matter what it is. And then move from there. And what will be really beautiful is when you start to notice all of these other things, some of the other things we talked about, how they'll slowly start to creep in, and you're like, wait a minute, I think that's what they were talking about. Or you know, and it just, life has a beautiful way of doing that, and I think it's wonderful. uh, so yes, my true advice would just be start small. The other stuff will unfold.
Yes. Perfect. Perfectly said. Okay, so is there anything you want to shout out from your friends, or anything that you want to promote?
I just want to say that I again want to say thank you so much for having me come on and have this conversation. It's really been fun, and I look forward to continuing our friendship and conversations. And for those who are listening, thank you, so much for joining in. And again, I hope that there's something small, at least, that you've taken from this conversation. And if at any point you feel like you want to reach out or have more of a conversation, I genuinely mean reach out, because I love connecting with people and hearing their stories, and I would be happy to have a conversation with you. So you just never know how things can unfold. So you can find me, if you'd like, you can find me on Facebook at Jessica Kirschner, or I'm on Instagram, which is jessica.kirschner. And I would love to connect.
Okay, thank you very much, Jessica, for lending us your time and being here and sharing all those yoga practices that we can practice to ourselves to support our New Year resolution. It has been a long talk, yet very informative, and many. I've gained a lot of insight as well. So uh, I will be looking forward to how our friendship will unfold, and how we can continue to ripple to other people with our core beliefs in this yoga platform. So thank you very much, my friend.
Yes, thank you. All right.
Bye bye. So there you go. We had a very informative talks about how you can apply those yoga practices in supporting your New Year's resolution. Yes, living in a life with non-violence, that you are not harming yourself, you are not harming others, is a great way that we can have harmony. We are living in this world with harmony, and having this time of self-study, of um, to grow ourselves on a personal level, is always the first thing that we have to consider, because we have been so immersed in trying to show others ourselves, but we never have the time to look within. And the last thing is to have that discipline, to have that commitment, that yes, we will put everything into action, and while doing the action, we get motivation and be encouraged to do more, and let all the things unfold in itself as we grow further towards our goal. This had been a very good night to us. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for those who are watching. And if you have any question about our topic for tonight, you can just post your comment. And I love to hear all about your comments about our topic. And this juncture, I would like to say thank you to my guests. Thank you to all of you who are tuning in. And just remember to live in love and give with compassion. I am Nefay de la Serna, Philippine Yoga Academy, signing out.
Gopala, Govinda Rama, Madana, Mohana, Gopala, Govinda Rama, Madana, Mohana. Govinda Rama, Govinda Gopala, Govinda Rama, Madana, Mohana, Gopala, Govinda Rama, Madana, Mohana, Govinda Rama, Madana, Govinda Gopala, Govinda Rama, Madana, Mohana, Gopala, Govinda Rama, Madana, Mohana. Gopala, Govinda Rama, Madana, Mohana. Gopala, Govinda Rama, Madana, Mohana. Goranga Haribo, Nichinanga Haribo, Goranga Haribo, Nichinanga Haribo, Goranga Haribo,